Hampus Jakobsson. Welcome on stage.
Thank you.
That's the part where you applaud. Good.
Thank you.
Hello. Take it away.
Thanks. So my first question before I start is, of course, how many in here are running a startup? And how many here are investors, or presumed as? Okay, so the rest of you are here for the drinks? Or like, anybody who's didn't raise their arm, like, what are you doing? Shout out. Okay, you're not here. There are other people here. You're just like getting a chair, sitting inside, disliking the wonderful sun. It's okay. I'm going to speak to the two ones that raised their arm, and if nobody shouted out, I'm just going to talk to you guys. So I'm going to talk about what value should an investor add to startup. And this is kind of like a user manual for the ones that are startups, like what can you demand, but it's also a user manual, of course, if you're an angel investor or run a fund or anything, what you will be demanded of. The first thing I'm going to say is really, and I mean this in a non-condescending and very honest way, it's very, very similar to be an angel investor in a startup as to be a parent of teenagers. It's actually very, very similar. How many of you have been teenagers? Okay, some of you missed that phase. But the thing about being a teenager is that your parents pay for everything, and they have no clue what you're doing, and they really want control and insight of everything, but you don't want to. Anybody who's an angel investor or a startup who recognize those things? It's exactly my life as an angel investor, and also when I ran a startup and had investors. So the thing is, my first question here is then, of course, like how can people be good angels? And for you that are parents of teenagers, this is also going to be really useful for you. So great. And for you guys who have been teenagers, this is also going to be some reminiscence. So the first thing is, if you are an angel, you got to understand that you actually do not understand. It's actually really tricky. So I've angel invested in 68 startups. I do not actually know what Kubernetes is. Like, I don't know how many conversations I've had about Kubernetes or LiDAR or some amazing new front-end JavaScript library that the front-end developer just found, and it's so new that it's not even really functioning, but we're going to use it anyway because he's a front-end developer. I have no clue what they're talking about. And the thing is that you have to be comfortable in that. You have to be totally okay with asking, saying, I don't understand, or just knowing it doesn't matter. It's okay. And as a startup who has this person angel investor, just get it. You've been a teenager. You know you can outsmart them. You know you can talk about all the things that happen on YouTube and they look really confused, or you can just be nice to them. So that's the first thing, really understanding, that it's like, you're not supposed to get it. It's okay. But just act that way. The second thing is that if you're a good angel investor, it's really important to remember that you're not trying to run a small company. Premature scaling is the reason number one that startups die. And if you're an angel investor and you're coming from a bigger world and you didn't run a startup before, you come in and the first question is what are your metrics look like? Can you please start reporting all of these things? You look at the accounting stuff, and it's like, this is horrible. Who's your accountant? This is just crazy bad. And as a startup, you're suddenly sitting there writing reports and reports and reports, measuring things that maybe shouldn't be measured. So the thing, if you're an angel here, is just understanding that in a certain phase, in an early stage phase, pre-revenue, you can't measure art. You're just going to destroy the people if you try to over-measure it. And this is hard, because the thing is, at the same time, the angel investors, they have to be the people that can tell you, this is a bad idea. As an angel investor, I often get invited to do planning, roadmap planning, or feature spec planning for what's doing it right now. And as I said previously, I have no clue what they're talking about. But the thing is, there are times when you just have to create accountability and discipline, of course. Remember the being a teenager. I mean, there are times when somebody just has to say, one startup I invested in, I had a meeting with them last week, and they were super excited, and I asked them, can you do a demo on Wednesday? And they were like, yeah, it's going to be great. And I said, should I invite a couple of people and we do a great demo? And they were like, yes, we're going to do a great demo. And it's like, okay, let's do lunch on Wednesday. It's going to be great. And I was like, let's do another one on Thursday. And they were like, yeah, that's going to be great. They were super happy about it. And I came in on Wednesday, and I was like, how is it working? And they were just sitting panic. And I was like, what is it? And they were like, not really there. And then I just put all the bags with the lunch on those desks, and I said, there's nobody coming today. I know. And let's have lunch together, because tomorrow there's going to be a real demo, okay? So, because I know what it feels like. I know what it feels over-promising. So it's come on, have lunch, and let's really do a demo tomorrow. Because somebody has to do that accountability, but you also have to be a good guy and make sure not to embarrass them. And that's a tricky thing. It's a fine line, not being an asshole. But it's definitely something you should be using with your angel investor if you're a startup. Asking them for accountability, promising them stuff, and delivering on that. And it's, as you know, it's a tricky thing. The next thing is, if you're an angel investor, greed is a really bad idea. And this is kind of an obvious thing, but as an investor, especially who's done angel and seed and A rounds, I come into companies where the founders own 20% of the company. And it's like, so who's this person owning 50%? Oh, it was our first angel investor. He's a super nice guy. He gave us 100,000 euros. It's like, yeah, that seems like a douchebag to me that just took all of your company. And the problem is that when you talk to this person, they don't understand that if you have a smaller piece of a bigger pie, you have bigger than having a very big piece of a pie that's never going to scale. Because nobody will invest in your company if you have a greedy angel. And this is also a tricky thing, because an angel, you kind of like want to have a lot of shareholding. So there's really good stuff written about it, but I would generally say, if you're an investor, when you're going up to the A round, the operational founders need to own more than 50% of the company. Otherwise, there's not going to be further rounds. So usually I recommend angel investors to take 20% of the company for a sane amount of money, so the company gets 12 to 18 months. That's the amount that's sane. Or do convertible notes or something. The next one, I'm trying to change here. The next one is for the startup to realize that the angel investor, they have been there, right? Hopefully. So a startup I talked to the other day, we had a long conversation. And I got a really good compliment. I was really proud of it. She told me, you just summarized like 50 Medium blog posts for me. It's like, what? It's like, the thing you just talked about, that was like, would have required me to read shitloads of blog posts, but you just distilled it. And that's the thing, if you find a good angel investor, they have been there. And you can ask them questions, and they can summarize all the things you've never even thought about before. And the good thing is that they know, like, I mean, I started my first startup pre-YouTube. That's how old I am. It's crazy how old I am, I realize now. It's like pre-Facebook. So like if I come into a startup and start yapping about how they should push themselves to social media, and like all of the things I've done were before the word was invented, like I'm just fooling myself. I actually had to go back. I actually started another company 4 years ago and built a company about modern sales and marketing processes because I was ending up advising people about it. So I started a company to have to figure it out, which was a pretty horrible experience. But it was fun. So really trying to use your angels is a tricky thing here, because like you might have one angel who's an amazing high network individual but knows nothing about your business. You might have one angel who knows everything about your industry, and you have one angel who knows everything about the way you're building it. So try profiling these angels and figure out, like, okay, let's talk to this person about, I'm going to San Francisco next week. I'd love to meet these, and these. Here are the LinkedIn profile. Can you connect me? Let's not talk about LiDAR. You have the person here saying, so we're selling to universities. We're planning on doing like 115K euro upfront and then charging. Is that? And then the person is like, whoa, it's like, I don't think you can get the institutions to pay 150 upfront, but I easily think you could get them to charge 5 euros per student. Like, what? Yeah, but then you can always end paying them support fees, because everybody does that in the industry. And you're like, wow, I never heard about this. And you just like massage the money a bit for how the industry talks about it. And then the third one is like, talk about how you solve it. That's the person you should talk about LiDAR or Kubernetes with. He or she doesn't care about the market, maybe. And that's the thing for you as an entrepreneur, is figuring out who should you ask about what. And the litmus test I have is I don't bring in angels who don't do one of these three things. Like if somebody comes in with a bag of money and they're not going to be one of these three people, I very rarely accept their money. And me as an angel too, I don't bring in syndicate angels that I don't think is going to bring in these values. Coming then to doing introductions, you got to make sure to help your angels do introductions. There's a lot of people that ask me, like, I'd love an introduction. And the thing is, it's very hard to do introductions for people you don't know. And I really, really recommend you to make it easy for the person doing the intro. I was about to tell a story. That was what I hesitated, but I realized this is a long story. But the thing is, if you want to be pushed into media and you want this investor to introduce you to this person in media, then write the text for them. Like, hey, Robert, John is an amazing founder of company blah, 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 and doing blah, blah, blah. He's in San Francisco, 15th, 18th, and would love to have an interview with you. I'm an angel investor. I really love what you're doing. Here, use this text. And then I can turn around and change it to my style and push send. What a lot of people end up doing is they're asking angel investors, could you introduce me to Bob? And I was like, sadly, I don't remember what you do. So I'm going to do an intro. It's like, Bob, meet Janet. And Bob is going to be like, what? And they're never going to meet. So make sure to make it easy to do intros, because otherwise you get horrible intros. The last part, the next last part, is actually what I do a lot, and what you should figure out with your investors is really that you got to find a relationship where you got to be in a bad spot and you still want to come to talk to them. There are a lot of my startups that ping me on Messenger at 11 p.m. and just can you talk? And that usually means really bad. And I was like, yeah, sure. And we have a call, and it's either it's my co-founder left me, or it's my key employee is leaving for a competitor, or we didn't sign that agreement, or we won't close the round. And you want angel investors who you can bring that up with and have that conversation. And of course, they have skin in the game. They want it to work too. But that is also a thing. You can usually find angel investors who can have that conversation with. Even if their money going to be lost, you got to realize that 5 years or 1 year of your life is going to be lost. And you got to be able to have that conversation. The thing about being an angel and being an investor, or being an angel and being an entrepreneur, is really that a lot of people believe that it's like a boss-employee relationship. And that couldn't be more wrong. It's more like you have a very absent-minded partner colleague that doesn't really remember who you are, and they're not that much in the office. That's really the relationship you'd be feeling. You kind of want them to remember who you are and have accountability and everything, but you can't expect of them. Personally, I think I stopped remembering startups after 30 investments. And when people ping me now, I really request them, can you please in the first line just tell what you do? And I sound like I'm senile. Not really, I'm just 40. Not yet, hopefully. 23andMe says I have a high risk of getting Alzheimer's. Maybe it's that. But I really just remember, it's you're trying to get these people to remember who you are and get them to help you well. So find out their relationship, and that's two-way. And a lot of trust comes from being transparent. And call your angel investors or your entrepreneurs before the shit hits the fan. You just call them and say, so this deal we're doing with Microsoft, things are kind of looking so-so. I'd love to talk about that. Instead of calling and saying, or writing in a weekly summary or monthly summary, by the way, we lost the Microsoft deal, and just try to hide it as a footnote. That's actually a very common thing. And it's it's a horrible. And I think we've all been teenagers, or apparently not some, but the ones that have been teenagers, we've done exactly that, right? We've just tried to sneak some alcohol out of a bottle every week, and then one day our parents come in and is this looks kind of empty. And you're I didn't take much. No, but you did it repeatedly, I guess. And it's you got to have a point. And that's a tricky thing, remembering. Whatever you do will be seen, and it's just better just being blunt about it, saying, shit, I fucked up, help me. Or I might fuck up, help me. And so how do you figure out if an angel is a good angel? Very quickly, I would say that the first thing is that if you meet an angel and pitch what you do, they have to be crazy excited what you do. Crazy excited either about the problem or about the solution. If you see angels looking and they're sitting not caring and they ask you, so what's the valuation? How much do you invested? What does the cap table look like? What are the metrics? I don't care what you're doing. It's the wrong angel. You want angels who are wow, that's cool. Who's using it? How are they using it? Who are the competitors? What are the alternatives? Or what is the technology? You want them to be excited because this is going to be a long journey. A long journey, I promise you. And a lot of people believe that signing an investment agreement is that's the last day. Yes, we signed it. But that's kind of walking up the aisle and walking out of the church and going yes, the fucker, I signed it. It's this is the first day of the journey, my friend. This is now when it starts. This is when you start working together. So better just see that excitement from day zero. The other thing is make sure to figure out that they help you before investment. Anybody I talk to, I just ask them immediately, how can I help you? And I want them to email me. I want them to say, can you do this, can you do that? And I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but I want to start that relationship because I want to see what they ask for. And if I were them, I, by God, would like to see what this dude can do. Can he actually do the things he seems to be doing? And that's super important. So just ask for help super quickly. And if my litmus test is, if people don't want to invest your pre-investments, they won't help you post-investments, and then you won't want them. And the last part is, you got to remember that these people are people also that you have to be able to have a fight with them and still want to meet them again. Like, it's the thing I tell a lot of people that I end like thinking about investing in. I come with massive criticism. I really tell this is shit, this is shit, this is shit. That's horrible. I hate that idea. I hate that, and blah 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 blah. I'm horrible. I'm a douchebag. I'm sorry about me being nasty. And I really want them to say afterwards, like, thanks for being honest. Most of the people we meet are just saying, yeah, maybe if you do a round, we won't lead, but we might be interested later. It's kind of like a fake no. It's much better people saying, I hate that about it, and then you at least know that. So you got to be able to fight with your angel investor. You got to be able to fight with the entrepreneur. If you can't take that fight, you're never going to do it later. It's kind of exactly like when you're trying to get married. Kind of also explains some marriages. And the thing is, you got to make sure to help your angels to brag. Help them to brag about you. Send them weekly updates, and I've written shitloads about that, and you can find it where I blog or where I tweet. And you can super easily find their manuals, how to keep your angel investors updated, how to make sure that your angel investors work for you, how to monetize, yada, yada, everything. And I really urge you to make sure that you have a good relationship with your angels and not like a boss-employee relationship. And now, I'm 30 seconds over time.
Dude, that was super precise. But you warned me. You said
No,
you do it. Don't run away.
It's not that Swedish.
Now, the good thing is you're like the first movie you can...
That's true.
You can
I
select
can choose
one.
chair.
And now we shall introduce in the other corner, whatever color you sat in, the other person who's getting ready to join us for The Clash. You've met him before. Dude, you blew it.
The basketball player.
Welcome on stage, Thomas. Stolfer, you've met him before. I was trying to kind of make the drama go.
Everyone.
Yeah, he hates the drama. Cheers.
Thanks.
Sorry about that, mate.
So,
enjoy yourself.
Thank you. There's not going to be a clash, so Hampus and I probably will not go and wrestle in the mud. Fortunately, probably for you. But I really enjoyed your presentation.
And me. Sorry. Yeah.
And you as well. So thank you for the presentation. It was actually great. I have, we've known each other for a little while, and to me, the first time when we chatted, it preempted, like we got introduced from one of the companies that you invested in, and they were like, okay, so this guy is the most awesome guy that we ever got to invest. So we started talking to him. About 20 minutes in, he was like, I love this. I'm kind of in. What can I do for you, and how can I help? And I think that can only happen if you kind of have an interesting path from kind of an entrepreneur into an angel. So can you kind of spend like a minute just explaining what was your path?
Yeah, so the short path is I'm a computer science engineer, and like I'll actually do it even before. I'm a fourth child. My older brothers are 8, 9, and 11 years older than I am. So I have like 10 years of human engineering school, of getting into people's minds. And then I did my computer science degree, and then I started a startup, which from like a hobby project become a 180 people company, completely organically, and got acquired for $150 million, which was mostly luck. A lot of grit, but mostly luck. No skill, honestly. Very little skill for a lot of things. And then I worked 2 years for M&A for BlackBerry, learned a lot what actually was on the other side of the table. And then after that, I started another startup because I felt I had to go back to the field. I felt really like pre-social media, as I said. And I did that for 4 years, did $2 million VC, and sold off the assets for like nothing. So a quick A/B test, organically grown, no smart money, super smart money, good success, really bad. So it's like, I've learned that. Don't take money. No, but seriously. And then now I've built an angel group called Nordic Makers, where we try to be operational and hands-on and help build startups.
So can you talk about your view on angel groups? I know we had a conversation about that. So
yeah, I think most angels group with the problem is that it's kind of like a group of rich dudes, men in 50s, that instead of golfing, they invest because they're probably bad at golfing. And one of the really horrible effects of that is that nobody ends investing because it's really, you get this groupthink effect where like you meet the startup and nobody wants to be the stupid person. Nobody wants to be naive and say, I think it's cool what they're doing. So everybody ends up sitting there and like, and then nobody invests. And it's just irritating. So I'm much more like diva startup groups where somebody's just saying, I'm doing this round with or without you guys. And then the others are like, hey, we're a partnership.
So you're almost kind of leading that, right, as an angel, which is kind of a concept that's usually used more later stage and so on. You have a lead investor, sets the price, sets the terms, and so on. So you invest in a lot of companies, both locally and globally. So would you consider yourself a lead, being one of the guys that's like, okay, I really like this. How do you assess the company?
Yeah.
And how you can help?
For
and then,
certain types. It's like if somebody does like deep tech, I have a weak nerve for deep tech stuff. So for me, it's like if somebody does something super interesting, I'm just like I'm in. Like I'd got to figure out the others. I met an interesting marketplace company here earlier today, and I was like, I don't know shit about marketplaces. I was like nothing. Like I've used them. That's about it. So what I did on the meeting is like I opened my laptop and introduced him to Klaus and Eric. Klaus who built Just Eat and Eric who built Delivery Hero. Introduced them to them and I was like, yeah, they're gonna talk to you. And he said like, could you help me with this? I was like, I have no clue. I can click through your service.
So would you say that like you can actually morph yourself in a type of investor that's like, okay, here I have some domain knowledge and I can be the what you know kind of type of investor, and then on the other side you're like who you know because like of all the other things that you've been working on?
Yeah, I think that I really feel that for this guy I met, for example, I think that I've got pretty good, I'm not that good, but at people assessment. So like figuring out, is this guy like an innovator, is an entrepreneur, is he a leader, is he a manager type? Is like, you know, is this a curious person, is this an ambitious person? It's like trying to figure out that, and of course helping them compensate for that, because some of it might be that that's not a problem, it's going to be figured out later. But then it's like, you know, for the what you know things, the things I know, but the things I don't know, I'm clueless about. And I think it's I find it irritating when actually I talk to, especially VCs, when they're like, you ask them, so what companies do you invest in? We invest in gaming, marketplaces, esports, SaaS businesses, and AI. And you're like, okay, you don't, like, what? It's like, there's no way you get all of those things.
Yeah, they're very different one from each other, right? So, you know, obviously we are in Slovenia, it's a tiny country, part of a region and so on. And I feel like a lot of people here have investment theses which are focused on the region. And you and I had a lot of conversations about how businesses are changing, and you know, if you really want venture return, sometimes you just want to invest on a thesis that's very, let's say, industry focused and knowledge focused. Mm-hmm. And for that, like having a local focus, it's not always the best thing. So what are your thoughts on kind of that part?
No, it's different when you want to build. Like if you want to build like a lifestyle business or you want to build a cash flow business, I think you don't have to think about it. But if you want to bring a VC-based back business, and the problem is angels, like me as an angel, I invest in companies that want to be that. But if I would be a real estate person, I would love the other two. But the thing is, I want people who can be best in their category. So if you're doing like Uber for Ljubljana, it's going to be hard. It's like one day Uber will come and you will die. I don't know if Uber's in Ljubljana.
Not yet.
No, exactly. So like if somebody's running that now, there's a time window. But if somebody is like, what are we amazingly good at? Is like, we have this old wood chip plant, blah, 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 whatever. Like, you know, really old stuff you might have. Hey, we can do this with it. And then you can create something that if you tell it to other people, like they don't understand that it's even possible. And that's why I like a lot of logistics startups are in Berlin. Because like if you're building a logistics startup, you just turn around and you ask one of the other logistics startup. And it's like what other fintech companies are in London or actually in Stockholm, because they just revolve around each other. And I think sometimes it can be a bit of a silly, self-fulfilling prophecy that, oh, you're a fintech company, why are you not in London and Stockholm? It's like, it doesn't have to be that way. But I think it's really about figuring out how can we be best in category, and that you cannot be that by being like Airbnb for Ljubljana. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So how many investments did you make like since you started angel investing?
So 68.
68.
I counted yesterday because I needed to do
great.
stock.
How many of those people you've never met in person?
A lot of them.
More than one?
No, I met them actually over time. I met a lot of them.
So I remember you telling me a story where you invested not only in the first round but actually followed on and so on, and never met the person.
No, absolutely. I've done that repeatedly. I was actually in an event in Berlin the other day, and I met 4 people that I was interested in. I'd never met them before. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing, the first guy, I was like, "Hello." It's like, "What the fine?" Blah blah blah. Started talking. It's like, "You have a body," but because we've only subscribed. And the second person is a female CEO, and it's like, "Wow, you got a great body." And she was like, "What?" I was like, "I meant I have not seen." This is good. Tell her I said the same thing to you, please.
All right.
But I survived.
Yeah, well, I can attest because I think I was at the same event. And
exactly. Yeah.
And that's where we met for the first time in person.
Yeah, exactly.
Talking for, I think, a year or something like that, very frequently. How many of the people in the room are investors, angel investors, or wannabe angel investors at some point? So what are you guys, like all startups,
I've done this poll. It was horrible. Exactly. Nobody-
corporates?
Exactly.
Oh, so we insulted them very early on.
Yeah,
And it's like,
I think they were just bored shitless
Great.
of my presentation.
no, I'm just asking because like the next topic that I want to touch is cap tables. And you said that you have a very nice way to explaining what a cap table is. And most importantly, the topic that I want to touch on is, like you mentioned in your presentation, is death by cap table, basically. So selling too much of your company way early on in terms of an investment and what kind of that can cause down the road. And just like spend a few minutes talking about kind of that topic because I think it's one of the most relevant probably for the region.
Yeah, it's a super common problem. I think it's like a local minimum problem because it's like when you are asking for investments and you can't get proper investors, then there are two things that happen. Either you get local investors because they think it's a good deal, or you shouldn't have raised money. And like maybe you should have died, or like not you, but the company. And then like the problem is you end up having these companies where you do this for 3 years, but you can never raise another round because now you have an external party owning too much. And it's actually not only investors, but a lot of like this year, Nordic Makers, the group I run, we turned down I think 3 or 4 really amazing companies, like really amazing companies. We had long conversations with them. We got the cap table, and in one of them, like there were 3 founders. 2 founders had left, and the 3 founders owned like equal. So this founder had like 20% left, and the 2 others who had 20% left. So like 40% of the cap table were former founders. And it was like, so my question was like, what do these do? Nothing. Can we buy their stock back? And I was like, no way, because I mean, why would they do that? Because otherwise nobody will invest. And that we ended up not investing because they didn't sell. And otherwise you have like the local real estate dude who thinks he or she is smart and invests and gets 50% of the shares and kills the company.
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges there is no malicious intent, just to make it clear, right? But it's
No.
just like it's very hard to understand that initially you will not be able to raise follow-on rounds if the ownership structure and the incentives in the long term are not aligned.
No,
And
exactly.
eventually, every single smart investor further down the road will know that if founders own less than 50% of the company at the Series A,
Yeah.
most likely they will not be incentivized enough to go all the way where they need to be. And so they see that at a pretty fundamental risk of like the company not being very successful. And like I've seen, similar to you, like I've seen people pass on really amazing, profitable, fast-growing businesses because the long-term incentives were not aligned. Or the investor coming in having to do a lot of gymnastics on that and convincing and like negotiating to eventually restructure the thing
And that's
in the right
actually,
way. And so most often in a non-competitive market, let's say here, I guess, or Europe, that might happen in the valley because like you have 100 other companies waiting in front of the office to pitch. You're just probably not going to bother because you don't have the time to do that, right?
And also I think a difference there is I think the more Valent mentality is you start a company, you build it for 3 months, whatever, you run to an investor. If they say no, you just kill it and move on. Whereas I think a lot of us Europeans, we just keep grinding, which could be a strength, but it's not great. Like like a lot of startups you meet, and you're like, so when you started, like 8 years ago, and you're like, this could be strength, but it sounds like a really bad thing. I mean, it is weird, and I think that's the thing. And I think just you got to have to explain it. Like startup I invested in, they had a problem of the cap table dilution, but up front they told me, so Jim Bob here owns 20%, but we can buy his shares for half this round price. So what happened actually is that we bought his shares, and the cool thing was that, so let's say the round was priced at 10 million. Wasn't, but anyways. We bought his shares from 5 million, which meant that our effective valuation was 7.5. So we were like super stoked about it. Jim Bob was super happy because he got a good return. The startup was super happy because we invested a lot of money, because we bought some shares and invested some money. And it was like, pre-negotiate with your current investors. Just ask them, we're doing this round, can we buy shares from you? And if they say no, then you're probably toast.
But just to make it clear, the founders already laid up the deal for you, basically. So, so that's a lot of the homework they did, and you didn't have to. So to end up this on a more light topic, we talked a lot about corporate stuff and corporate incubators and so on. I know you helped design 2 of those programs with interesting results and interesting motivation. So I think for the audience here that comes like from that world, that would be great to hear the 2 stories, like in the minute and 55 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. So the 2 corporates are very different. So like I did one for Sony and then one from E.ON, and E.ON is an electricity company. And for E.ON, the task they wanted was that they want to make sure that they are innovative. And we had a long conversation, and they wanted really to start investing in startups to become innovative. And we realized that it's going to be hard for them to do that corporate transformation. So what they ended up doing is that they ended up starting an accelerator incubator, half of the teams are internal, half of the teams are external, and they give them money, everything 6 months, and they actually don't do any follow-ons. They might, but they have never done so. But what happens is most of the people just go in, and they get like all of these super entrepreneurial people coming back to the company with now fresh ideas, and they start like units or keep the project, name it as a daughter company or anything. Really, really beautiful. And it's like that seems to be working. And for Sony, for them it was that they were going to lay off a lot of staff. And they had a lot of very talented people, but they didn't know how to do that gently. So they did we're going to pay your salary for 1 year. If you start a startup, we're going to pay it for 18, and you're going to coach, and yada, yada. And they did that. And they actually, I think they started 15 startups. And of course, I think half of them use Sony products, and half of them don't. But I think at the end of the day, really, all of them say that Sony is the best employer they've ever had. They would absolutely work there again and everything. And they create a lot of buzz around them. And I think some of these companies, they're going to end up acquiring back and stuff like that.
So, but if I understand correctly, the motive was not to create venture businesses, the original motive, right? So that might be the secondary outcome.
I think what you said on stage previously is if you want to make money on your bottom line, then go be an LP. It's I've met a couple of very good VCs, Salesforce Ventures and stuff they're not even remotely connected to Salesforce. They are, but very, very far away. They're very, very far away from them. And I think that's a good VC. But all of the VCs which are so we're the local wood chip company VC, it's I don't want to have those kind of monies because they're going to ask me the 2 days after, can you make sure that this works with wood chipping? And you're our customers are tenants of a big apartments. Yeah, but wood chips are kind of the same. Maybe you could look into wood chips, maybe. Otherwise, maybe some of the angels are going to be pissed off with you.
Cool. We are out of time, so if you have any questions for Hampus, catch him later.
Or catch me on Twitter.
Yeah, or Twitter. So he also blogs amazing stuff, most recently about building good infrastructure as a service businesses and healthy that, and just in general about life hacks and so on. So also has a great way to learn stuff, just writes blog posts about them.
It's my hack to learn, exactly.
Thank you so much, Hampus.
Thank you.